When Eddie Brock nearly died at the end of Venom War, he chose to go to a place that had always meant something to him, but what he didn't expect was that Carnage was there clinging to life as well. The symbiote proposed they fan together since they lack of options, and it would agree to whatever terms Eddie wanted to set. But that turned out to be a problem for Eddie, because controlling Carnage is infinitely harder than controlling Venom. Eddie would only allow him to kill murderers, and one of their first targets was hiding somewhere on a plane. They didn't know exactly who he was, so Eddie used Carnage's tendrils to probe the mind of every single passenger, one by one, none of them were guilty, which meant the killer had to be one of the pilots. Eddie forced his way into the cockpit, but he had no idea which one of the two it was, and just as Carnage suggested, they kill them both. A federal air marshal on the flight shot him from behind. Carnage stopped the bullet, but the co-pilot used the distraction to pull out a hunting knife, finish off the pilot, and then cut every wire on the control panel so that no one would survive, and for the very first time, Eddie and Carnage were completely in agreement. It felt good, but the plane was still going down. Carnage was enjoying every second of it, but Eddie wasn't about to let it end like that. He wrapped all the passengers in a massive symbiote cluster and flew them out of the plane before impact. Carnage was disgusted. He let Eddie know that little act of stupidity was not part of the deal. He threatened him, insulted him, but Eddie wouldn't budge, so Carnage had no choice but to take full control of the body, and Eddie blacked out completely. When he came back to his senses, he could barely remember watching the symbiote cluster dissolve. He decided it was time to talk and stepped into his own mind to confront him. Carnage refused to tell him what had happened, and when Eddie threatened him, he wrapped him in tendrils and laughed in his face, because the only way to get rid of him was to die, and they both knew Eddie wasn't going to do that. Carnage could see straight into his soul, and what he found there was nothing heroic, so he admitted it. The Venom War had left him diminished, and he now needed a host just to survive. But no matter how much Eddie still missed Venom, he was no longer the king in black. All of that was left behind the day. Eddie voluntarily chose to bond with Carnage just so no one else would have to. Eddie pushed again about the passengers, and the symbiote repeated that he wasn't going to tell him what happened. He found it insulting that Eddie would even ask after all. They were Carnage, tired of talking. He agreed to keep going after killers, but the next target had to be someone with powers, so it would at least be a fair and entertaining fight for him in the real world, though. Eddie was the one steering the ship, so he left the choice to him. From that gallery of monsters, Carnage had once evaluated as potential future hosts.